myself a lot.
Come on, I'll show you the corner I use whenever I hear
You've been
Tony
singing
Bennett.
along your whole life. You know every word, every note, every pause before the chorus, and you've always assumed the artist you love wrote it. But what if they didn't? What if the song you thought belonged to one of the greatest acts in history was actually written by someone else entirely? Someone most people have never even heard of. Today we're counting down 15 famous songs from the 60s and 70s that you had absolutely no idea were covers. Some of these will genuinely surprise you, a few might shock you completely, and at least one is going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about your all-time favorite artist. Stick around. Number 1 is a jaw-dropper. Recordings
If you
of
love
her
discovering
entire
the hidden
career.
stories behind
the
the
lyric
hits,
about
hit
freedom
that
being
subscribe
just
button
another
and
word
tap
for
the
nothing
bell
left to
so you
lose
never miss
became
a
one of the
retro
most
rewind
quoted
video.
lines.
Drop a like
if you're
but
ready
it's
to have your mind
free.
blown, and tell us in the comments which one
Feeling
Chris
good.
Christopherson wrote the song.
Now let's get into
and
it.
it was first
Number
recorded
15,
by Respect by Aretha Franklin, 1967. Originally by Otis Redding, 1965. When most people hear the word respect, they hear Aretha Franklin. Her 1967 recording became one of the defining anthems of the civil rights movement, the women's movement, and pretty much every movement that needed a soundtrack. It felt so completely and utterly hers that the idea of it belonging to anyone else seems almost impossible. But Respect was written and originally recorded by Otis Redding in 1965. Redding's version was a man demanding respect from his woman when he comes home, a very different power dynamic from what Aretha would eventually do with it. His version charted respectably but never became a phenomenon. When Aretha recorded it 2 years later, she flipped the entire meaning. She changed a few lines, added the famous R-E-S-P-E-C-T spelling, and transformed a man's demand into a woman's declaration. Redding himself reportedly heard her version and said she had taken his song completely. He meant it as a compliment. The transformation is so total that Redding's original now sounds like the cover, even though chronologically it came first. That almost never happens in music. It's a testament to what Aretha Franklin did, that the song's entire identity shifted in a single recording session. Aretha's Respect went to number 1 and stayed there for 2 weeks. Otis Redding died in a plane crash later that year, never knowing the full scale of what his song would become in someone else's hands. Quick question, did you know this one was a cover? Drop it in the comments. Number 14, Hound Dog by Elvis Presley, 1956. Originally by Big Mama Thornton, 1952, Elvis Presley's Hound Dog is one of the most famous recordings in rock and roll history. Released in 1956, it spent 11 weeks at number 1 and became the best-selling single of that entire year. For generations of fans, Hound Dog is Elvis, full stop. But Big Mama Thornton recorded the original in 1952, 4 years before Elvis was anywhere near a microphone. Written by the legendary songwriting duo Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller when they were just teenagers, Thornton's version was a tough, swaggering blues recording that reached number 1 on the R&B charts and stayed there for 7 weeks. Thornton's Hound Dog is a completely different creature from Elvis's version, where his is playful and theatrical. Hers is raw and authoritative. She sounds like a woman who has genuinely had enough of someone's nonsense and is done pretending otherwise. The emotion is completely real. Here's the part that stings. Thornton received a flat payment of $500 for her recording and saw virtually nothing from the song's enormous success. Leiber and Stoller went on to great careers. Elvis became a legend. Big Mama Thornton spent years playing smaller venues while her song made other people famous. History has gradually corrected the record on Big Mama Thornton, and her contribution is now much more widely recognized. But for decades, millions of people sang along to Hound Dog without having any idea who actually blazed that trail first.
baby.
Number 13, Twist and Shout by the Beatles, 1963. Originally by the Top Notes, 1961, when John Lennon screamed his way through Twist and Shout at the end of a marathon recording session in 1963, he did it in one take with a throat so raw from a cold that he was barely holding together. That performance became one of the most electrifying vocals in Beatles history, and the song became one of their signature moments. But Twist and Shout was written by Burt Burns and Phil Medley, and first recorded by the Top Notes in 1961. That version went nowhere. Then the Isley Brothers recorded it in 1962 with considerably more energy, and had a genuine hit. The Beatles heard the Isley Brothers version and put it in their live set. The Beatles' recording of Twist and Shout was done on the very last song of the very last session for their debut album, Please Please Me. They had been recording all day. Lennon's voice was shredded. Producer George Martin suggested they get it done quickly because he wasn't sure Lennon could manage another take. He managed one. That one take, recorded by a man with a cold at the end of an exhausting day in a single desperate burst of energy, became the recording that defined the song for all time. The Isley Brothers version is brilliant. The Beatles version sounds like something that could only happen once. Twist and Shout reached number 2 in the US, kept off the top spot only by another Beatles song. Not bad for a cover recorded in a single take by a singer who could barely speak. Number 12, Piece of My Heart by Janis Joplin, 1968. Originally by Irma Franklin, 1967, Janis Joplin's version of Piece of My Heart with Big Brother and the Holding Company is one of the defining recordings of the late 60s. Her raw, tearing vocal, sounding simultaneously like someone breaking apart and someone who refuses to break, became the sound of an entire generation's emotional intensity. The original was recorded by Irma Franklin in 1967, yes, Aretha Franklin's sister. Written by Burt Burns and Jerry Ragavoy, Irma's version was a soul recording of real quality that charted on the R&B charts but never crossed over to mainstream pop success. When Joplin heard it, she connected with the lyrics' masochistic tenderness immediately. The narrator keeps giving everything she has to someone who keeps taking it and walking away. Joplin transformed the arrangement from polished soul into something ragged and ecstatic, and her performance made the pain in the lyrics feel physically present. The fact that the original was by Aretha Franklin's sister adds a remarkable layer to the story. Two sisters, both enormously talented, both somewhat overshadowed by the recordings that came after their own. Irma Franklin had a long and respected career but never had the chart success her sister did, or the cultural moment that Janis Joplin created with her song. Piece of My Heart reached number 12 in the US for Joplin and became one of Woodstock's most celebrated performances. Irma Franklin continued recording until the 1990s. Both versions deserve to be heard. Number 11, All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix, 1968. Originally by Bob Dylan, 1967, Bob Dylan wrote and recorded All Along the Watchtower in 1967 for his John Wesley Harding album. His version is stark and acoustic, just a voice, a guitar, and a harmonica moving through one of the most enigmatic and poetic lyrics he ever wrote. It's a great recording, and then Jimi Hendrix got hold of it. Hendrix's 1968 version transformed the song so completely that Bob Dylan himself began performing it live in Hendrix's arrangement rather than his own. Dylan has said that Hendrix's recording is the definitive version, that Hendrix took the song somewhere Dylan hadn't imagined when he wrote it. Think about what that means. The man who wrote the song, one of the greatest songwriters who ever lived, heard someone else's version and said that person understood the song better than he did. That is an extraordinary thing to say, and Dylan has said it publicly multiple times over many decades. Hendrix recorded his version in a single 3-hour session in London. He overdubbed the guitar parts himself, building the arrangement layer by layer in an almost orchestral approach. The finished recording sounds like it took weeks. It took one afternoon and a genius who heard something in a song that its author had left for someone else to find. All Along the Watchtower reached number 20 in the US for Hendrix, becoming his highest charting single. Dylan's original never charted as a single at all. Sometimes the cover is where a song finally arrives. Number 10, Without You by Nilsson, 1971. Originally by Badfinger 1970, Harry Nilsson's Without You is one of the most dramatic and emotionally overwhelming ballads of the 1970s. His vocal performance, climbing to that devastating high note on the word Anymore, became the standard by which all power ballads were measured. It spent 4 weeks at number 1 in 1972 and won Nilsson the Grammy for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance. But Without You was written by Pete Ham and Tom Evans of Badfinger and appeared on their 1970 album No Dice. Their version is a beautifully crafted rock ballad that demonstrated real songwriting maturity. It didn't chart as a single. Then Nilsson heard it at a party, reportedly played it back several times in a row, and decided immediately that he had to record it. Producer Richard Perry surrounded Nilsson's vocal with a sweeping orchestral arrangement that turned the song into something cinematic. The combination of Ham and Evans's melody and Nilsson's extraordinary voice created a recording that became larger than either the original composers or the performer could have made alone. The tragedy behind the song is genuinely heartbreaking. Pete Ham died by suicide in 1975, and Tom Evans died the same way in 1983. Both men struggled financially for years, despite having written one of the biggest hits of the decade. The music industry's treatment of songwriters in that era left real human damage in its wake. Without You has been covered hundreds of times since, most famously by Mariah Carey in 1994, but Nilsson's version remains the one that most people hear in their heads. And almost none of them know it started with two young men in Badfinger who never got to see how far their song traveled. Number 9, Me and Bobby McGee by Janis Joplin, 1971. Originally by Roger Miller, 1969. Me and Bobby McGee is the song Janis Joplin is most associated with, released posthumously in 1971 after her death in October 1970. It became her only number 1 single, and one of the most beloved recordings of her entire career. The lyric about freedom being just another word for nothing left to lose became one of the most quoted lines in popular music. But Chris Christopherson wrote the song, and it was first recorded by Roger Miller in 1969. Christopherson was a janitor at Columbia Recording Studios in Nashville when he was writing some of the most important country songs of the era. He handed the demo to Miller, who had a modest country hit with it. Then other versions followed. Christopherson gave the song to Joplin through their mutual friend Fred Foster. She recorded it just days before she died, in a late-night session that nobody present knew would be one of her last. The recording has the easy, intimate quality of someone singing a song they love, not someone making a statement. That casualness is part of what makes it so affecting. Christopherson has said that hearing Joplin's version for the first time after her death was one of the most overwhelming experiences of his life. She had taken something he wrote and made it feel like her autobiography. The line about freedom and nothing left to lose hit entirely differently knowing what had happened to her. Me and Bobby McGee is now so completely associated with Janis Joplin that most people are genuinely startled to learn Chris Christopherson wrote it. That's the highest compliment a cover can pay to a song, making it feel like it could only ever have been yours. Number 8, Hurt by Johnny Cash 2002. Originally by 9 Inch Nails 1994, Johnny Cash's recording of Hurt in 2002 is one of the most powerful pieces of music of the entire decade. The black and white video, Cash's aged and weathering face, the images of a life's memorabilia. It became something more than a music video. It became a meditation on mortality. So honest, it was almost impossible to watch without being moved.
My sweetest friend.
But Trent Reznor of 9 Inch Nails wrote Hurt in 1994 and recorded it for the album The Downward Spiral. Reznor's version is a raw, industrial expression of self-destruction and addiction, surrounded by noise and distortion. It is a very different song in his hands. Younger, angrier, more desperate.
My sweetest friend.
When producer Rick Rubin suggested Cash record it, Cash's initial reaction was uncertainty. He wasn't sure a song written by a young industrial rock musician was right for him. Then he sat with the lyrics and realized the song was actually about exactly where he was in his own life. The regret, the damage, the question of what you've done with the time you were given.
My sweetest friend.
Trent Reznor has said that watching Cash's video made him feel like the song no longer belonged to him, and he meant that as the most profound compliment he could give. He said Cash had made the song real in a way he hadn't fully achieved himself. Two artists, 30 years apart, finding completely different truths in the same words.
My sweetest friend.
Cash died in September 2003, less than a year after the video was released. His wife June Carter Cash died 4 months before him. The video feels like a farewell that he knew it was. Some covers don't just interpret a song, they complete it.
My sweetest friend.
Number 7, Killing Me Softly by Roberta Flack, 1973. Originally by Lori Lieberman, 1972, Roberta Flack's Killing Me Softly with his song spent 5 weeks at number 1 in 1973, won 3 Grammys including Record of the Year, and became one of the most recognizable songs of the decade. Her delivery, intimate, unhurried, completely in control, made the song feel like a private confession shared with millions of people simultaneously.
Killing me softly with this song, killing me softly.
But the song was written by Charles Fox and Norman Gimbel and first recorded by Lori Lieberman in 1972 after she heard Don McLean perform live and was so moved by the experience she wrote a poem about it. That poem became the lyric. Lieberman's version was a gentle, understated recording that received very little attention.
Killing me softly with this song, killing me softly.
Flack heard Lieberman's recording on a plane and asked the flight attendant to play it again, then again. She learned the song on that flight and brought it to her producer, who helped her build the arrangement that became the hit. The sensation Flack described, being emotionally undone by a stranger's performance, is exactly what the song is about.
Killing me softly with this song, killing me softly.
The Fugees sampled Flack's version in 1996, introducing it to a completely new generation. Most people who know the Fugees version have no idea there was a Flack version before it, let alone a Lieberman version before that. The song has traveled through 3 generations of listeners, each time feeling like it was written for whoever was hearing it right then.
Killing me softly with this song, killing me softly.
Lori Lieberman still performs and records today, and Killing Me Softly is a central part of her story. It's a song she inspired with her own emotional response to music, which is, when you think about it, the most perfect origin story a song about music could possibly have.
Killing me softly with this song, killing me softly.
Number 6, Summertime Blues by The Who 1970. Originally by Eddie Cochran 1958, The Who's live version of Summertime Blues from their Live at Leeds album in 1970 is one of the greatest live rock recordings ever made. Keith Moon's drumming is like a controlled explosion. Pete Townshend's guitar is barely contained chaos, and Roger Daltrey delivers the lyrics with the full force of a band that played every show like it might be their last.
Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do, 'cause there ain't no cure for the...
Eddie Cochran wrote and recorded the original in 1958, and it was a genuine rock and roll classic in its own right, reaching number 8 on the pop charts and capturing the specific frustration of being young, broke, and powerless with 3 perfectly constructed verses. Cochran died in a car accident in 1960 at the age of 21.
Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do, 'cause there ain't no cure for the...
The Who transformed the song from a tight 2-minute rockabilly complaint into a 5-minute thunderstorm. They kept the structure but blew out every wall around it, turning what was already a great song into a demonstration of what rock music could physically do to a room full of people.
Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do, 'cause there ain't no cure for the...
Blue Cheer had also covered it in 1968 with a proto-metal heaviness that pointed toward a different future. But The Who's version is the one that became definitive in the rock canon, largely because Live It Leads became the album that defined what a live rock record could be.
Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do, 'cause there ain't no cure for the...
Eddie Cochran wrote Summertime Blues in his late teens, frustrated about the same things teenagers are still frustrated about today. The fact that his song kept finding new life in the hands of new artists for decades is the best possible tribute to what he created in that short, brilliant career.
Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do, 'cause there ain't no cure for the...
Number 5, The Letter by the Box Tops 1967. Originally written by Wayne Carson Thompson, the Box Tops recording of The Letter in 1967 is one of the great blue-eyed soul performances of the decade. 16-year-old Alex Chilton's raspy, world-weary vocal sounds like it belongs to someone twice his age, and the song's breathless 2-minute runtime made it one of the most efficiently constructed hits of the entire era. It went straight to number 1. The song was written by Wayne Carson Thompson, a Nashville songwriter who knocked it out quickly and without any particular expectation that it would become one of the biggest hits of 1967. Thompson's original demo was straightforward country pop. What the Box Tops and producer Dan Penn did with it was something else entirely. Joe Cocker recorded an extraordinary version in 1970 that took the song somewhere completely different. Slower, heavier, more gospel-drenched, with a full brass arrangement that made it feel like a completely separate composition. Cocker's version is so good that many listeners genuinely can't tell you which version they know better. Wayne Carson Thompson went on to write several other notable songs, but The Letter remained his most famous contribution to popular music. He reportedly received his songwriting royalties faithfully for decades, which puts him in better financial shape than many of the original artists on this list. The Letter has been covered more than 100 times since 1967. Every version finds something slightly different in those 2 minutes of music. That's the mark of a song that was built to last. It gives every artist who touches it a different door to walk through. Number 4, Unchained Melody by the Righteous Brothers 1965. Originally by Al Hibbler 1955, when Bobby Hatfield sang Unchained Melody for the Righteous Brothers in 1965, he did it alone in the studio while Bill Medley waited outside. The arrangement was simple, the vocal was everything, and the result was one of the most emotionally overwhelming recordings of the entire decade. It became one of the best-selling singles of the year, and gained a second life in 1990 through the film Ghost. But Unchained Melody was written by Alex North and Hy Zarette in 1955 for a prison film called Unchained, hence the title. Al Hibbler's version was the first major hit, reaching number 3 on the pop charts. Roy Hamilton had an equally successful version the same year. Over the following decade, more than 500 artists recorded it, making it one of the most covered songs of the 20th century. The Righteous Brothers version wasn't even released as an official single at first. It was the B-side to another track. Radio programmers flipped it over, liked what they heard, and started playing the B-side. The song took on its own momentum completely independently of any promotional effort from the label. When Ghost used the song in 1990, the original 1965 recording re-entered the charts and reached #1 in the UK 25 years after its initial release. Bobby Hatfield had recorded a new version for the re-release, but it was the original that audiences wanted. Some performances exist outside of time entirely. Unchained Melody is the song that proved a great melody in the right voice is essentially immortal. Al Hibbler started something in 1955 that is still going. Bobby Hatfield gave it the voice it needed to travel furthest, and it's still traveling. Number 3, Tainted Love, by Soft Cell 1981. Originally by Gloria Jones 1964. Soft Cell's Tainted Love is one of the defining singles of the early 80s, a synth-pop masterpiece that reached #1 in 17 countries and introduced the word tainted to an entirely new generation of listeners. Mark Allman's delivery is theatrical and anguished, and the electronic production sounds simultaneously cold and desperately emotional. But Gloria Jones wrote and recorded Tainted Love in 1964, and her version is a Northern Soul classic, faster, more urgent, built on a driving beat that became beloved in British dance halls throughout the late 60s and 70s. Jones's version never charted significantly in America on its original release. In British Northern Soul circles, it became one of the most sought-after records in existence. Mark Allman heard Jones's version at a club night in the late 70s and became obsessed with it. When Soft Cell recorded their version, they kept the core melody and lyric, but rebuilt everything else from scratch, replacing the live band with synthesizers and drum machines. The emotional content stayed identical, while the sonic world transformed completely. Gloria Jones is perhaps better known to music fans as the partner of Mark Bolan of T-Rex. She was in the car with him when he died in a crash in 1977. That personal tragedy overshadowed much of her musical legacy for years. Soft Cell's cover brought her songwriting back into public conversation in a way nothing else had. Tainted Love is now so completely identified with Soft Cell that most people assume they wrote it. Gloria Jones's original deserves to be heard on its own terms, a furious, brilliant piece of 60s soul that found its largest audience nearly 20 years after it was recorded. Number 2, With a Little Help from My Friends by Joe Cocker, 1968. Originally by the Beatles, 1967, Joe Cocker's version of With a Little Help from My Friends is one of the most audacious cover recordings in pop history. The Beatles' original, sung by Ringo Starr on Sgt. Pepper, is charming and warm and slightly self-deprecating. Very Ringo, very 1967. Cocker took the same song and turned it into a gospel rock eruption that sounds like it was written specifically for his voice. Cocker's version opened Woodstock in 1969, and his performance there became one of the defining moments of the festival. The arrangement, built around a slow-burning crescendo and Jimmy Page's guitar work, transformed a 3-minute pop song into a 5-minute religious experience. The audience response in the Woodstock film tells the whole story. John Lennon and Paul McCartney heard Cocker's version before Woodstock and were reportedly astonished. They had written the song as a gentle vehicle for Ringo, never imagining it could carry this kind of emotional weight. Lennon in particular was said to have been moved by what Cocker had found inside something they had written almost as a throwaway. The song became the theme to the American television series The Wonder Years in 1988. Introducing it to yet another generation. Many people who grew up in the 80s and 90s know the song entirely through that association, with no awareness that it was a Beatles cover or that Joe Cocker's version had its own extraordinary history. Joe Cocker had a long and remarkable career, but with a little help from my friends was always his calling card. He returned to it constantly throughout his life. Some songs find the singer who understands them best, and when that happens, both the song and the singer are changed forever. Number 1, Something by Frank Sinatra. Originally by the Beatles 1969, Frank Sinatra called Something the greatest love song ever written. He performed it live hundreds of times in the final decades of his career, often introducing it as his favorite song. He recorded it multiple times and told interviewers it was a Lennon-McCartney composition, which was wrong. George Harrison wrote Something, and for years Sinatra kept crediting the wrong Beatle.
Something in the way that she woos me.
Harrison wrote Something in 1969 during the Let It Be sessions, inspired in part by Something in the Way She Moves, a James Taylor song, which gave the opening line its gentle familiarity. It was released as the A-side of a Beatles single, the first Harrison composition to achieve that distinction, and reached number 1 in the US.
Something in the way that she woos me.
Sinatra's version is slower, more intimate, surrounded by lush orchestration that places it in an entirely different emotional register from the Beatles' recording, where Harrison's version has a quiet wonder in it. Sinatra's sounds like a man in his 50s reflecting on love with the full weight of experience behind every word.
Something in the way that she woos me.
The misattribution became a running joke that Harrison handled with characteristic dry humor. He pointed out repeatedly in interviews that Sinatra kept getting the writing credit wrong despite having performed the song more times than Harrison could count. Eventually, Sinatra corrected himself publicly, acknowledging Harrison specifically. Harrison said it was one of the nicest things that ever happened to him.
Something in the way that she woos me.
Something has now been covered more than any other Beatles song except Yesterday. It has been recorded by artists across every genre and generation. George Harrison wrote it in a quiet moment during one of the most tumultuous periods in the Beatles' history, and what he produced was exactly what Frank Sinatra said it was, the greatest love song ever written. And almost nobody knows a Beatle wrote it.
Something in the way that she woos me.
From Aretha Franklin rewriting Otis Redding's Power Dynamic to Frank Sinatra crediting the wrong Beatle for 50 years, the history of covers is full of moments where a song found its true home in someone else's hands. These weren't lesser versions. In many cases, they were the versions that lasted. Music has always worked this way. Songs travel. They find new voices, new arrangements, new meanings. The original isn't always where a song lives best. Sometimes the cover is where it finally becomes itself. And sometimes you spend your whole life singing along to a song without knowing the full story of how it got to you. So tell us in the comments, which one genuinely surprised you? Which cover do you actually prefer to the original? And which famous song do you think is secretly a cover that we didn't include? Drop it below. We read every single one. If this one blew your mind even a little, hit that like button and subscribe to Retro Rewind for more deep dives into the hidden stories behind the greatest music ever made. Tap the bell so you never miss a video. Share this with someone who thinks they know everything about 60s and 70s music, and let us know how they react. We'll see you in the next one.